He received training in disaster mental health and is a member of the intersectoral mental health and psychosocial support technical working group. After hearing all of that, you wonder if he has spare time. In his spare time, he engages in outdoor activities such as football, cricket, cycling, and lawn tennis. He has assisted in Linstead and Haven Hill Baptist Church's medical outreach activities over the past 10 years. Last but by no means least, Dr. Goldburn is a Christian with membership at the Runaway Bay Tabernacle, St. Anne. So our presenter comes quite qualified to address our topic this afternoon. And we just want to make him welcome. Thanks so much, Dr. Goldburn, for being with us. And we're going to hand over to you, sir. Let us just look at the chat to see if anybody had responded. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 persons, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 persons, Dr. Goldburn, who said they have first-hand experience with these conditions. So let us make Dr. Goldburn welcome.
Thank you, Sister Price, for your thank you. Thank you, Sister Price, for your kind words of welcome and introduction. And it's indeed a pleasure to be part of your health series, and especially to include in it mental health aspect of things. Because so often mental health is often neglected. And as they say, there's no good health without mental health. So I'm going to share my slide now. Can you see my slide? Can you see my slide?
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay, good, fine. So I've looked at the material and so on. I've tried to just speak about the health issues associated with aging and dementia. I may mention a bit about Parkinson's disease, but not too much, because if I have to mention Parkinson's disease with dementia, it may take the whole afternoon. And I don't want to lose person because I went on too long. So if you don't mind, I'll just restrict my main discussion on aging and dementia. And since both of them are linked, I'll discuss those 2 topics. So in discussion this evening, which I'm hoping to get some feedback from you, we'll look at aging and put it into our Jamaican context. What are the facts and myths as related to aging? Then we switch and turn or shift gears and look at dementia, different aspects of dementia, the approach to managing person with dementia, both medical and otherwise. And just to make a note here that World Alzheimer's Month is celebrated each year in Jamaica, and it's worldwide in September. So you can look up for that, where there will be a heightened focus and increased awareness of Alzheimer's during the month of September. So let's first look at aging and look at our population and life expectancy as persons age. So it has been known that the population that is equal and greater than 60 years old are growing, the growing section of the population. Now, this group increased from 5.6% in 1970 to 7.7% of the population in 2004. And in 2017, it was 12.4%. And it's projected that come 2050, it will be 18%. This is close to the current size of the under-60 population. And of note, while the elderly population is growing, the amount of children that are being born are decreasing, as the fertility rate has been decreasing over the years. So no longer you have families where you have family of 8 and 6 children, you have more 2 and 1 and 3. It's also noted that women tend to live longer than men, and that's only in Jamaica, but in other societies. So between 1995 and 2005, the growth rate in the female population for those persons who are 65 years and over has more than doubled that of the male population in the same age group. So let's look at the age dependency ratio, which is a very important ratio to look at. And this ratio of persons who are younger than 15 years old or older than 64 years old, and comparing that group of persons in the population with the working age population, which is 15 over 64. So the 15 to 64 population are the ones who support those who are 15 and younger and those 64 and older. So the older person dependency ratio has steadily increased from just over 13% in 2010 to almost 14% in 2015. And also, on the other hand, when compared to the youth dependency ratio, it has decreased from almost 42% in 2010 to about 35% in 2015. Some of the facts and myths about aging. So persons who are elderly in a sort of in a homogeneous group. In other words, not everybody who's over 65 years old will be the same way. Most people think persons who are 65 years and older, elderly population, that they are slow, they are bent over, they can't exercise, they can't be participating in activities in the home and in church. And that's far from the truth. If you just listen to a Hillangoli right a while ago, the lady was 100 years old who is not just a cook, not just a chef, but she's a maitre d', which means that she still knows about how to run a kitchen, and she's 100 years
Dr.
old.
Coburn, sorry to interrupt.
That's hearing me?
It's a little low, please.
Oh, oh. Is it any better?
You could try again.
Okay, is it better now?
For me, it is.
Oh. Yes, so I was saying about the aging facts and myths that the elderly population is not a homogeneous group, not all of them are the same. So we should not get into our minds that elderly are slow, decrepit, and can't function. So while ago, a Hill and Gully ride on the TV, the lady was 100 years old, was still a maitre d', which is not just a chef, but a higher level. So there's no one description that fits all persons who are elderly. And this adage that we hear, whether once a man, twice a child, is so far from the truth. And so that's what causes a problem with the aging population when they're treated as children and cause of discontent between themselves and their family members, church members, and other associates. And last but not least, getting older or elderly is not synonymous with dementia. In other words, not all persons who get over the age of 70 and 75 and 80 will have dementia. It's a possibility, an increasing possibility, but it's not a definite happening. And this is a quotation from Nadine Williams, and it's our expression of the truth about the aging person. Aging person is free to receive the blessings of the present, while he or she takes advantage of the wisdom from the past as he or she prepares for the risks of the future, while imparting lessons learned to those whom he or she touches. So the aging person have a lot to give back to our society if you allow them to. Now let's switch gears now and look at dementia. Now the word dementia is coming from the Latin word which means out of one's mind or being mad or insane. Because de in Spanish is out of, mens is mind. The people with dementia are far from mad or insane. Case in point, I recently in dialogue with with a lady who was diagnosed with dementia. And in doing assessment, I asked her a few personal questions to assess her current mental status. I asked her who lady who came in the office with her. The lady was her daughter-in-law. She pleasantly asked her daughter-in-law to tell me who she was. So even though she was having dementia, actually living with dementia, there's no hint of madness. She politely and smiled appropriately when speaking to her daughter-in-law. And she also promised me that later she can tell me what I was wearing on my wrist. As I asked her, what did I have on my wrist? Which was my watch, but she wasn't able to identify it at the time. So of note then, dementia is a brain disorder. Some persons may think dementia is due to some traumatic experience someone may have experienced early in life, and with their counseling and treating them firmly will help them to get better. But no, the brain disorder and the manifestations are largely out of the person's ability to control.
Dr. Goldburn,
Yes, not
sorry
hearing
to
me?
interject again. Persons are saying that it is still low. Is there any further adjustment that you can do?
Is it any better?
Wonderful.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go over this important slide though. So the word dementia is related to Latin word meaning out of one's mind. So they mean out of men's mind. But it's so far from the truth. As I interacted with one of my patients with dementia and asked her a question, and she didn't know the answer, but she politely asked her daughter-in-law to tell me who she was. And she also promised me that later on she would tell me what I was wearing on my wrist, as she was unable to identify the watch on my wrist as a watch. So dementia is a brain disorder. And some of us may think it is due to some traumatic experience, why this person is behaving differently, not interacting and so on, and would need to get counseling. But it's a brain disorder where whatever manifestation we are seeing is not within the control of the person who's having the condition. So let's look at some of the statistics as it relates to dementia in Jamaica. And that means in dementia, prevalence is about 5.9%. With Alzheimer, let me make a point first that dementia has many causes, and Alzheimer is just one of them. So the Alzheimer's pattern of dementia constitutes the most persons who have dementia in Jamaica, almost 62%. Whereas the other one, vascular dementia, is the other second commonest one, and 32.4%. But I've noticed that persons who have Alzheimer's disease may also have vascular dementia as well. So there can be a coexistence of both vascular dementia as well as Alzheimer's type of dementia in the same person. Of note, female gender and increasing age were associated with a higher rate of dementia. Consequently, among the Jamaican elderly, which at the time of recording of 2010 was 300,000, it was estimated that 19,000 persons were experiencing dementia. An expected increase to 31,000 expected in 2030 and 55,000 in 2050. So you can see it's a very growing issue which we need to deal with now and see what we can do to decrease the negative impact of this condition. Dementia is a chronic progressive brain disease, and in most cases, it can be reversed. And tend to occur mainly in the older population. And of note, it is characterized by persons who have a decrease in their cognition, which has to do with their memory, ability to reason, ability to make decisions, ability to plan and organize your activities. They also decrease in their functioning, where it's functioning within the home circle or outside home circle, which which I will discuss further, as you mentioned, the activities of daily living. And because of all those decline in cognition and functioning, there were increased dependence on those around them. And the person who has dementia have a clear consciousness. You know, they're not delirious, they're not confused, they're just not able to function because of the brain disorder that they're experiencing. As mentioned before, it can impact negatively on the caregivers, their families, on society in which they exist, affects economy. So it is a very important public health issue to be addressed. I mentioned earlier that multiple cause of dementia, even though Alzheimer is the main cause, second, vascular, but the other cause like Parkinson's disease, AIDS, and alcohol abuse. Of note, dementia due to AIDS does not occur in the latter stages of disease. And when it occurs, it progresses quickly over a few weeks to months to death. And this type of dementia almost always occur in the younger adults rather than the elderly population. What may be the different things that person present with when there is dementia? Of course, we must bear in mind that person may be in the early stages or later stages, so it may be mild at first and become severe with time. So one of the first thing I want to recognize is memory difficulties. And this tend to be difficulties in remembering things that may happen a while ago, like what they could not remember what they ate for breakfast this morning, or who visited them this morning. But yet long-term memory tend to remain intact, so they can remember what happened, which school they went to when they were a little child, which community they were raised in, which church they went to. They can remember those things from way back when they were children. But that happened just in recent times, even a few hours ago, a few minutes ago, they may not remember. And there tend to be a loss of orientation of where they are, of what time, of date, year, location. They may, even when severe, they might be able to recognize who they are. Then they may be changing person's mood and behavior. So they may be apathy where they are withdrawn and not reactive, or may increase, they become more irritable, more fussy. Because a quiet person become very miserable, very cantankerous, as it were, and they may tend to wander away, aimlessly away from the home, onto the road, into the nearest community. Then this person may have inappropriate emotional expression. So they may get easily upset over minor matters, start crying for no apparent reason as far as you could see. Nothing sad happened, but they start crying. And then importantly, they're not able to perform usual activities that they could perform before. So they kind of what we call activities of daily living and active and instrumental activities of daily living, which we'll discuss a bit more detail a little bit from now. And persons in the initial phase of their decline in their memory, in their reasoning, and in their activity, they may express distress because they realize they don't remember anything as well as they used to remember. So they may come a bit distressed about it. And later signs of dementia present, they may decrease in bladder control and bowel control, in which case they may need to wear adult diapers at that stage. Another thing may notice about persons who have dementia is that they may have lost the ability to recognize even simple objects. So as I was told about the lady trying to recognize the watch I had in my hand. And they may even have a difficulty in speaking, in expressing themselves, whether it's verbally or writing, or have difficulty understanding the spoken language or what's it. So you can see right away that can have issues in communication. So in clinical presentation and making assessment, Then the informants are very important. Whether it's caregivers, family members, persons who know them very well, are very important in giving the history for the clinician, the doctor, whoever it is making assessment, can make a proper assessment and see where the changes are in the assessment of dementia. So what are the acts of daily living we're speaking about? The term for this basic acts of daily living. And can anybody give me examples of what it may include? What are the acts of daily that we all learn from when we are toddlers? I'm going to ask you a hard question, so anybody can give me an answer for that.
Brushing,
Taking a bath.
bathing.
Like what? Bathing, yes. What else?
Basic hygiene things, brushing teeth and
Brush your teeth,
combing
yes.
hair, yes.
Right. Okay,
Yes.
good. Right. And if you get the basic
Would that also include like when to use the bathroom or something like that?
yes, yes. Not only when, but how to use the bathroom. Not only when, but also how to use it. So it includes walking.
In yourself.
Yes, right, clean yourself. Right, that's the point. Yes. So walking or get around the house, it may seem simple to us. And so that we learn as a toddler learn to walk. And that may be an issue that may be affecting the person with dementia. Mention about feeding oneself. Does the ability to move the food from the plate to one's mouth. In a patient with dementia, that might become difficult. Dressing and grooming, selecting one clothes and what to put on and put it on properly, not back to front or wrong side, outside, that sort of thing. Mention about toileting, which include not only going to the toilet, but also using it appropriately and cleaning oneself properly afterwards. So that become very challenging person with dementia. Dementia and bathing oneself. And also in moving, so moving from a sitting position in a chair to get up and move to the bedroom, that may be an issue for a person who has dementia. So one of the activities I mentioned before, actually we learn from an early stage in life, from when we are toddlers growing up. We learn to walk and feed ourselves and so on, and learn to potty train and that sort of thing. So those are mostly physical things we speak about when we speak about activities of daily living. But then what are the instrumental activities of daily living? What do you think are the instrumental activities of daily living? And these activities usually are activities which need a lot more thinking, and so that you probably acquire more so from your teenage years going up. What that this might include? And let me help you out. So it includes managing finances, so as paying bills and managing financial assets. That is an instrumental activity of daily living. Another one is just whether it's driving your own vehicle or organizing a means of transportation, like getting a taxi to go somewhere. Also, it's about shopping, preparing a grocery list and actually going shopping, not only for food, but also for clothing, and also preparing the necessary things to make breakfast, for example. Then there's house cleaning and home maintenance, which means cleaning the kitchen after eating, keeping the house clean and tidy. Then the whole issue about managing communication, which include telephone calls, emails, WhatsApp messages that maybe I think that we tend to acquire as you get older. Your medication management, where you are able to obtain your medication and take them as prescribed by the doctor. So all these things are called instrumental acts of daily living, and it demands a bit higher ability to think than a toddler, a teenager, older person, or a person who can handle these skills. Bear in mind though that in the person you're assessing, if the person never used to cook before, for example, then like that person can't cook now. So you have to also bear in mind what person used to do before and see if there's change in that behavior. So we can't just use the same thing for everybody. So I have relatives before who never cooked before, so I thought men didn't cook. So for those persons, you can use cooking as an example of declining function, for example. And of course, some ladies probably never mind what finances because the husband does all the financial management. So a person who have dementia, the information about finances, you can use that as a measure to see that there's a decline because they never used to do it before. Now, an issue about person who have dementia, they may have change in their behavior and they may have psychiatric symptoms. Such a behavior of concern include wandering aimlessly, which can be very dangerous. And you have heard on the news about several persons who have wandered away from home and can't be found. Someone probably were never found alive afterwards. They become easily agitated and become very disruptive and quarrelsome and may even be cursing. They tend not to sleep at nights. So daytime they might take naps and so on, but nighttime come they're up and they're walking around the house and they're interfering with things and disturbing the household. They may show some of aggression as if they want to pick a fight with someone, as it were. Then they change in personality. Suppose remember previously a quiet person, all of a sudden become very argumentative, very quarrelsome, or vice versa. Then some person with dementia, they may have psychiatric symptoms such as hallucinations, where they may be seeing things and seeing things and things that are very disturbing. I've had some of them who said they have seen children run up and down their house, or they have seen another man in the house, and cause the lady to be very concerned that causing the man to be very concerned that his wife has a next man in the house, and cause them to have paranoia. They're very suspicious of the wife because it's believed that he saw another man in the house, and it's really because of his dementia we're having those false perceptions. Then some person may have anxiety or depression, especially in the early phase of dementia, when they are noticing that they have a decline in their ability to reason and do things, can't remember things they usually remember before, the children's name, activities, and so on. So ensure when it is obvious to them and obvious to other persons, then that can cause anxiety and depression. I mentioned before, there can be emotional outbursts, which may be uncontrolled, maybe either getting upset easily or crying easily for no apparent reason. So how do we go about making an assessment of a person having dementia? And the first we start with history. And history want to know from the person, if he or she can tell that information, or from close relatives and family, what has been the person's course of activity of his ability to function, his ability to do the things I mentioned before, in terms of memory, in terms of speech, activities, where it's activities that's related to daily living, which is like bathing, eating, walking, or it's usually like for daily living where they clubbing driving and can't drive so well now. They can't do the bills anymore. So you want to get a history from a person when all this started, how long it's going for, and how it has impacted on the person's ability to look after themselves and look after their own personal affairs. Then in examination, we're going to more detailed on an objective way in assessing that person's memory, that person's ability to recognize objects, that person do complex movement like move the hand like this, pass. That may seem very simple to all of us now, but a person who has dementia may have a difficulty in doing that. So we do during the examination, we assess to see how well this person's conditions seem to have impaired the ability to do very different things which are affected by dementia. So we assess the acts of daily living and the each act of daily living as there be any significant decline in it, and if the decline is it a decline that is seen a few times, is seen often or seen sometimes. And by doing that, we know the severity of it. Then we also want to do blood tests. And the blood tests to see if there's any other causes of this person's presentation. So a person may be having memory issues because maybe diabetic, and diabetes are properly controlled. So you have to make sure there's no other cause for this person's behavior. A person may have thyroid disease, may have hypothyroid disease, and that may be what caused a person to have a change in his behavior or her behavior. They also want to do imaging tests, where they do like brain scan and MRI, and they're able to see if there's any change in the brain, then give us a clue as to what may be causing the person's dementia. If it's due to vascular dementia, or is it a picture of Alzheimer's or other dementia. So in terms of management, we want to provide a supportive, enabling environment for our patients so that they can, even in the presence of dementia, live in comfort and have a high quality of life. So the goal of managing a person living with dementia, and I dare say in the care of persons who are older, so with persons who are older without the dementia, the goal then should be not limited to preservation of life. So you don't them just live a long life until 100 years old. But importantly, you want to seek to achieve the highest quality of life for this person and to maintain the highest level of functioning. And that is done by ensuring we can keep them engaged in activities. In other words, we don't just have them in the house, parked one side, as it were, but have them engaged in activities in the house. Even if it means, like, for example, they come into the kitchen and wash up the potatoes, if that's all they can do. And remain productive as long as they can. As I said before, retain whatever function, whatever they can do, allow them to do it for themselves. Retain mobility. So go for walks. Don't allow them to just be at home sitting down and not going for walks, because you might think that, oh, they don't need to go and walk because they have arthritis. But you're trying to, as much as possible, retain mobility. If you try to, as much as possible, instilling them that they still have something to offer. There's some self-worth they need to maintain. And I can know my different things. For example, simply by just asking their opinion about something. What color to paint the kitchen? Simple things like that. Of course, respect and dignity is very important. I can tell you about a little story about, and a real story where a lady, she was having dementia, and in her family, there were caregivers there, but also caregivers and helpers who will help in cooking in the kitchen. So one day, she wandered in the kitchen in order to do something. And the helper said to her, she must leave the kitchen. She should not be in the kitchen at all. And the elder lady turned around and gave her a slap. I think they did that because she felt disrespected. In her own house, someone was really running her out of the kitchen. And that part of what we want to do is make sure we maintain protection of property, which I'll mention later on why that is so important. An important quality of life. So in management dementia, we look at medication, look at what psychosocial intervention that can be put in place. And importantly, we have to make sure we provide education to family and caregivers. That's what dementia is about, and providing support for them. Because sometimes if they are not supported well, they may have an impact on themselves and the ability to look after the person who's dealing with dementia. Now, the question may ask, can dementia be prevented? And by preventing, we have primary prevention, which means stopping the disease before it could occur. And right now, they are doing research to see if there are medications and lifestyle factors which could determine if a person can be prevented from having dementia. We do know that some conditions, like if you're properly managed diabetes, hypertension, and so on, it can decrease the incidence of vascular dementia. So there's some truth to that. You can do primary prevention if you can maintain proper control of these non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol. Secondary prevention speaks about trying to reduce or stop the disease progression once symptoms appear. So the goal here is to try to reduce disability that may be caused due to dementia. And that's why early detection and initiation of treatment is very key to cause secondary prevention. So in minor dementia, we do have medication which can help to treat persons who have Alzheimer's dementia in particular. In Alzheimer's dementia, it is thought that a decrease in a particular enzyme that's necessary for the brain to function, and the medication like donepezil or Aricept, which can treat and can ensure that that change in the brain can be rectified or at least slowed down. So by treatment like that, it doesn't stop the person from being progressive in the dementia decline, but it tends to slow it down. So the person have a delay in the progression of the dementia process. And by doing that, it allows for more time for the person to be able to look after him or herself and still involved in issues that they're living. Like, for example, they can be more involved in preparing a will, in looking about their investment and so on, and seeing who they want to be put in charge, like the power of attorney. They can be more involved in that process by slowing down the cognitive decline by treating with donepezil. The donepezil is what we call a cholinesterase inhibitor, and this medication is primarily useful in Alzheimer's dementia, but maybe also useful in other types of dementia. And there have been studies to see how much it can work in our dementia, but it's primarily used in Alzheimer's dementia. Now, vascular dementia is caused by either decrease in circulation of the brain due to clot formation, which may be related to diabetes, hypertension, or due to increasing cholesterol. By that decrease in the circulation, it causes giving your brain to die, what we call infarct. And if this happens often enough, it may cause what we call vascular dementia. So one of the primary means of control vascular dementia then is to control these non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and high cholesterol, and also to prevent further stroke. Because we can give medication that can prevent further stroke, like aspirin and other medication can prevent further stroke. Of course, there are also lifestyle modifiable activities that one can also put in place, like stop smoking, have a balanced diet, and have regular exercise. And that means we can have to manage vascular dementia and prevent the further deterioration of person with vascular dementia. Now, person with dementia may present with behavioral or psychiatric symptoms, as I mentioned earlier. So persons who may have agitation or aggression or delusions where they have false belief and believe that someone is in the house with them, they're like a train running up and down in the house, or there's an ex-man in the house who is having an affair with his wife, or they are seeing things, or they may have depression or insomnia. They will tend to get them treatment to deal with these disturbing behavior, to control agitation, control aggression, to treat the delusions and hallucinations, and treat depression and insomnia. So for the agitation and aggression, we may treat them with what we call antipsychotic medication or anti-epileptic medications like valproic acids. Tend to use low dose of medications. So risperidone and haloperidol antipsychotics, we need to use low doses, and those doses tend to be very effective and well tolerated and can control the psychiatric symptoms of delusional hallucination and also control the agitation that person with dementia may present with. For those who have depression in early dementia, then they can be treated with antidepressants. And there's this whole issue of psychosocial intervention. And it's very important for us to bear this in mind because sometimes this is what may cause a person with dementia to become more irritable. So one of them is the communication style. But make sure in talking to them, first of all, we identify who we are. So I'm Kevin Goldberg. And address the person by name. And then use short words and simple sentences. So you don't give them a whole paragraph when you're speaking to them because of their inability to comprehend a lot of information at one time. And then you want to ask one question at a time. And because of the fact that they're having dementia, they may be slow in processing information, so you allow time for them to respond. So you don't rush them into responding. And bear in mind, sometimes they might ask questions over and over again because of the fact that they're not processing as quickly and as clearly as they would years ago. Then there's the whole issue about behavioral problems. We're going to be able to look at validation therapy, and this preferred to confrontation. So the person may have a delusion that there are persons in the house and they're convinced that little children in the house, ramping down the house, go in the cupboard, interfere with their things and so on, and they are convinced about it. It's advised that you spend less time confronting them and saying that what they're saying is nonsense, is rubbish, you are crazy. No, that doesn't help. Because by saying those things, then they may become more annoyed about you responding to them in such negative terms. Instead, one could just say to them, oh, that might be very distressing for those people who are on your house. And then use the other technique of distracting them from that line of conversation, something that's more pleasant and more current. Then the whole issue about trying to help them to be aware of the day, where they are. You be careful we use that. So sometimes you be careful that we don't use it in a way that sounds, that sounds like if you are reminding them. So because remember they already know they may have a deficit in their memory. So by using them, you know, when you say Saturday, the 10th of July, why keep asking us again? And those things will highlight the deficits and make them become very embarrassed and even irritable that you are saying this to you in a way that sounds like they should know better than that. And how could I be asking a question again? But then there are times when you need to still tell them where they are and so on. So for example, especially if they are not at home anymore, they're staying somewhere else, you may have to repeatedly tell them in a nice and calm voice where they are. You're at your daughter's house, and today is July 14th, Sunday, July 14th, and you'll be here for a week. So sometimes you can still tell them what the orientation is, but you have to make sure the tone of voice is such that they can know that you're trying to give them information to help them and not trying to embarrass them or to them look as if they should know better and why they're asking you such a stupid question. Then there's a behavioral approach for those people who are agitated and aggressive or those display troublesome behavior. Troublesome behavior, like for example, they might displace their clothes and put it put their underwear in the refrigerator. Or other things that may seem very troublesome. They may be pulling at the caregiver's body parts, which sometimes happen. So all those things may happen. So approach is suggests that you trying to see what is the ABC of the situation. In other words, what occurs before the troublesome behavior and what are the consequences of that. So by observing carefully that when there's too much noise in the room, then the person may get a bit irritable and may start shouting, for example. Then you know what you have to do is control the noise in the room. So the the person will become irritable and start shouting. So we need to observe and see what it is that precedes the behavior and the consequences of the person's behavior, like shouting in this particular issue. Example I gave a while ago. Another way to also interact with person who have dementia is to go on memory lane. I remember I saw a lady who was 100 years old, and she told me, George, you wouldn't remember what your name is and so on. But we asked her about where she grew up and her life was, and we could see her with a different glow on her face. She just bent down, spoke about walking barefoot to school and all it was enjoyable, and she was just, as I say, in communicating her growing up experience. And by doing that, one, you have to can relate something that they can recall. Two, it becomes a social interaction. And three, it becomes very meaningful because sometimes you, the person who's listening, can actually learn things about how life was years ago, 60 years ago, which you never knew about. So it can be actually mutually beneficial. Then there's the whole issue about importance of sensory stimulation. So sometimes music might be very useful for some person with dementia. That if they can hear, whether it's classical music or other music that they enjoy, Christian gospel songs and so on, you might find like having that playing, so then that's what keep them in a good mood, in a happy mood. Or maybe pets. They might like pets, so they might find having a cat around that they can pet and so on. It make a difference in how they behave and how they interact. What other interventions one may put in place? These include ensuring that the person can see well. So sometimes that person is able to behave because they're not seeing so well. So make sure their eyes are tested. They may not be hearing well. And that's why they may be able to where they are, where they're asking questions over and over again because they're not hearing so well at all. Not only because of dementia. They may not eat so well because they need better dentures with better fitting dentures. And then, of course, with the elderly population, especially when they need a lot of assistance with active daily like bathing and so on, you need to have grab bars in the bath. You need to have eating utensils. For example, there are some plates which are very curved at the edge and it's kind of heavy like it stays on the table. And they have some particular spoons they use to eat. And that way they can feed themselves, even though it's with assistance. So it's important then to make sure whatever we can put in place to maintain the level of function and the quality of life is to maintain. Because I'm sure persons feel better if they can feed themselves rather than be fed by other persons. They may need canes to walk. Many wheelchairs should be avoided as much as possible because you want to maintain them being ambulated. So it's preferred to have quad canes or walkers so they can still maintain their mobility, they still can exercise, and that is good for them. And they have to make sure nothing that is happening that you missed, for example, they might have urinary tract infection, they make sure they have proper hydration, because all these things can cause person with dementia to become very agitated and may cause them to be very uncooperative with their care. So it's important that we also, as I mentioned earlier, that persons who are providing caregiver service to person with dementia, and this may be paid caregiver or non-paid caregiver, that these persons are provide support. And actually there is a website, and you can see it on the board, isupportfordementia.org, which has different modules which can assist our caregivers to be better caregivers, one, and also to make sure that they can also take care of themselves. Because if they don't take care of themselves, they won't be able to take care of their child well at all. So one is talk about introduction to dementia, so give persons information about dementia. Second one is about what it means to be a caregiver. And they want to ensure you not only take being a good caregiver, but you want to make sure you take care of yourself. Okay, want to provide everyday care. And importantly, how to deal when the persons are we are looking after or have dementia are showing behavioral change, where they're becoming more stubborn, become more resistive, more argumentative, more combative, how to deal with those situations. I mentioned some before, but this model can also give you further information as to how to manage this challenging situation in taking care of persons with dementia. One important thing to bear in mind is that we make sure parents' welfare issues are taken care of. So we have to make sure there are enough resources to ensure safety, food, shelter, and health care. Also, want to make sure that necessary legal things are put in place to ensure person's welfare are protected. This may include power of attorney, person right and living will, and also a standard will. Now, important of all this is that sometimes person living dementia, sometimes because of the fact that they are not reason and able to make decisions based on facts and so on, sometimes other persons in society may take advantage of them. And I've known of several instances where persons would have entered into a home where person was dementia, maybe moderate dementia, lives alone, usually as a female, lives alone, relatives are abroad, and they will go and assist that person, befriend that person, and spend time with that person to the point where that person will see them as their friend and will write over the will and give the will. And when they die, the house goes to the person who has befriended them. And that happened time and time again. And there have been several instances where we have to be involved in ensuring that so letters are written so this person who has dementia, not able to make decisions on their own, and for the court to appoint persons who are appropriate to manage this person's financial and other affairs to ensure that the person have necessary things in place to look after their, make sure they are safe, make sure they have food, shelter, and necessary health care. And I'm sure there will some discussion you'll have about different wills a person can have and power of attorney, which are very important issues that need to be discussed to ensure that persons who are experiencing early dementia and frequent dementia that actually have different things in place to ensure that their desires are honored and that nobody takes advantage of them because of their state of dementia, which affect their ability to think and reason and do things for themselves. So look at aging, and well, aging is not homogeneous, that we need to make sure we treat persons differently as they age, since they're not all have the same challenges, the same situations. And that person who's aging doesn't necessarily have dementia. Also, dementia does not equal to madness. And opposite of dementia present with psychiatric symptoms. So dementia is not equal to madness. And that when we provide care for persons who have dementia, we need to make sure we have a person at center to ensure that person have the highest quality of life and maintain highest level of functioning. We try not to emphasize person's disability. You know, you don't emphasize what a person cannot do, but emphasize what they can do and allow to do what they can do for as long as they can do it for themselves, rather than be taking it over from them. So the overall objective is to achieve a high quality of life and to ensure the welfare of a person living with dementia is protected. And management, as I mentioned before, is not only treating the primary kind of dementia, as we see with Alzheimer's, where we can use cholinesterase inhibitors, but also management of the behavioral and psychiatric symptoms that person with dementia may present with. And it's critical that only attend to the person who has dementia, but also to the caregiver to ensure he or she is well educated as what dementia is, what to expect, and how to manage dementia, but also to make sure they take care of themselves. So thank you for listening. And are there any questions or comments or feedback?
Okay, participants, please feel free to type your questions in the chat or raise your hand if you just wish to do it over the microphone. Okay, go ahead, Sister Anne.
All right. Good afternoon, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a concern. I have a coworker and she speaks as if her mother is having dementia. But what concerns her most of all is that she says at times when her mother gets irritable and she'll start quarreling for her things and she can't find this and she can't find her money. And what troubles her most of all is her neighbors hearing.
Yes.
So she becomes very, very, very worried about that. Very worried about that part of the situation. So how would I help her, in terms of a colleague, trying to help my colleague who becomes very, very worried about what persons are going to say when they hear this conversation?
Actually, you highlight a very important point because actually not only they do say things like that, but actually persons who have dementia can embarrass you. For example, you go to the house as a visitor and you say to them, "So, Miss Jane, what you have for breakfast this morning?" You don't feed me for morning, allow me with something to eat. And so they'll say these kind of embarrassing things that will let you, the person who's taking care of them, feel the boy, you have not been treating them quite well. And also, as you mentioned before, they also will accuse you of doing things, of troubling their money, interfering with their things, and so on. So that's why it's important that person who, whether it's caregivers or family members, understand person who have dementia, that is a likely possibility. So first of all, then they're not to take it personally and start to argue with the person and say, "Mommy, that's not true. Why you telling lie on me?" and so on. Because by arguing with her, it's not going to help too much because as far as she's concerned, it is true. So arguing doesn't help. Next thing one may have to do is to somehow say to her, "Okay, mom, you can't find it. You can't find whatever you're looking for. Let's look for it." So in other words, instead of arguing with her, you're trying to let her know that, okay, let's look for it. And you may never find it, but at least you have distracted her from continuing quarreling. And I say sometimes though, they may actually need to get treatment because we have a patient before who have accused their spouse of having other men in the house or ladies in the house. And by getting medication treatment, that paranoia goes away. So one is to really try so we can intervene without becoming quarrelsome and being confrontational with the person, because by doing that, it will make the person become more irritable that what they're saying is true and you're trying to be defensive. But trying to see how much you can say to them, "Okay, I see you must be very worried about the fact you can't find your money that you put on there, you can't find what your valuable jewelry and so on. Let's look for it." But at the same time, you want to even distract them from it and trying to put the mindset more pleasant. But you may ultimately need that person to get treatment because by treatment, it can get rid of those delusions and help that person to relate better. I've seen patients who are accused their spouse of having someone in the house, and with treatment, that accusation goes away.
All right, thank you, Dr. Goldburn.
You're welcome.
Okay, Dr. Goldburn, I'm seeing a question here. At what age can the onset of dementia start?
Okay, so dementia can start at different age, different cause. As I mentioned before, person with HIV can have dementia from a younger age, from in their 40s, depending on how well the AIDS is controlled. But most persons will have onset usually in later years, sometimes after 65 onwards. But we have had persons who have had dementia earlier than that as well. So there's no set stage, no set age, but usually we say usually over 55 is a possibility. But most persons who develop dementia will have developed it when they are probably in their 70s.
There's another one here. How long can a person live with dementia?
They can live for very long. I mean, we have a person who live very long, depending on the severity of it and the type of dementia and how it's managed, they can live for many years afterwards. So it's possible to live for many years afterwards after being diagnosed with dementia. Because dementia in itself is not going to kill you per se. What may cause the problem is if you don't have the supportive care to ensure that you maintain your health and well-being. And what may cause your demise in some persons is not really the dementia itself, but the underlying cause. It may be due to stroke or due to poorly controlled diabetes. That's what may actually cause a person to die, and not the dementia itself.
About questions? I have one, Dr. Goldberg. Can action be taken against caregivers who abuse the person with dementia? Because I've heard of situations where these persons have been flogged.
Yes, action can be taken, and they can be reported and report. Okay, so report can report to, of course, the police, of course, and can be taken to court, where the person can actually face court charges for abusing a vulnerable person or a person with dementia. So action can be taken. Judge will make sure one of the evidences support the claim.
Any more questions?
We have a traffic collections that are just very funky designs that have illustration.
When I take home message though is that to make sure, so the vascular dementia itself, as I said before, it can be somewhat prevented or controlled, and the main control is to actually control the underlying diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and to maintain one's balanced diet, exercise, and to stop any substance use habit like smoking or alcohol use.
So I'm understanding you to say that it's a lifestyle problem there, the vascular dementia.
That's the dementia as a lifestyle component because of the fact that non-communicable disease like diabetes, hypertension, are the underlying reason why the person develop what they call decrease in blood circulation into the brain, and that cause brain cells to die, and then cause brain to dysfunction and cause the symptoms and signs of dementia. So if you are able to manage those lifestyle diseases, then it can decrease the onset or the severity of dementia.
Yeah, thanks for that, sir. I'm seeing some other questions here. How can we slow the decline of dementia, or maybe that's slow the decline caused by dementia?
Well, several ways. But one, the medication does help with Alzheimer's in slowing the decline. So we're not, by taking the medication, does slow the decline. And I mentioned before, the different psychosocial intervention I mentioned about, or you communicate with the person or you keep the person active and so on, they're a very important part, also to slow down the process and to maintain the person's quality of life. And of course, I mentioned before, the management of the underlying diseases will also slow the decline of the dementia.
So that, are there online resources or support support groups with dementia and their caregivers?
Well, I don't have any online support groups as we speak, but the online support group I will tell about this one I gave in the presentation, which I don't know if everybody got a chance to take a note of it, because in it you actually can get information and they may have linked support groups. And of course, one can form support groups as well.
Is it genetic?
There is some family history to it. It's not, the link is not very strong for say, like sickle cell disease, where if mother and father have sickle cell disease, child must have sickle cell disease. It's not as strong as that, but there's some other genetic link that if you have one or two parents with dementia, especially Alzheimer's dementia, then it increases the risk of the offspring having dementia.
Is there any research to corroborate that persons who use their brain too much causes death of the brain cells, etc.?
There's no research that actually there's no research that says that whether you are high use of your brain or low use of your brain, mean that say for example, a person who's a professor, for example, at a university, you might say that person, oh, he's very intellectual, he won't have dementia, but they do have dementia. And you have a person who may be, say, illiterate, they may be prone to dementia as well. So it's not correlated strictly with one's level of learning, although it is thought that if you have a bit of, if you are more learned, you probably will show less sign of dementia earlier because you can compensate using your intellectual prowess.
Prevagen approved for use in Jamaica. Does it help in slowing dementia?
Prevagen, I don't know if it's been used in Jamaica. We have some that we have the cholinesterase inhibitor like Aricept that are available in Jamaica, but Prevagen, I know that we have it. I know there have been some experimental drugs that are there that have been in the States that can help to slow down the process. Some of them have shown great results, so it's not conclusive, but they are working on seeing what can they do to really prevent dementia using these new medication.
Oh, there's another one here. Does drinking milk help with dementia?
So it does what?
Drinking milk.
Oh, no, I don't have milk. Drinking milk of itself that helps with preventing dementia. No. I don't know about that. I know that vitamin E can help, but even vitamin E can be used along with the donepezil and other inhibitors, but it has been given very carefully. But not about milk itself. And it's a question about why we're not seeing a rise in dementia. But we're actually seeing, I think we are seeing the rise in dementia, but it's kind of hard to tell because we have increased our public awareness of it, so we might be picking up more of it, but we're not too sure exactly what is the current statistics, but it is expected that the numbers will rise with time. This project will rise with time, especially as more persons live longer, so increase the chance of person having dementia.
Dr. Goldburn, I particularly like the point you made about the client welfare issues because having that someone there to monitor their finances and to help them manage in that regard. Because we're seeing where a lot of persons in that age group, they're being scammed.
Yes.
Yes, they're targeted at that.
And I think the church could also help with that a lot because you'll have other persons who may end up being couples probably living together in Jamaica. Nowadays most children are migrating to the States and to Canada and UK, and they're out here, and sometimes other persons said before befriends them, and then somehow they seem to have a kind of trust in them, and will also even just will over the whole house to them.
Answer that point. What is being done about getting the medications on NHF, for example? Elixir.
Right. And that's like donepezil, which are cholinesterase inhibitors for the other person on the platform, which have to improve one's to slow the cognitive decline in dementia. So yes, actually I've been told that that meglipizide is now on the VEN list. I've double checked it on for myself, but if it's not there, and knowing the Ministry of Health from my unit, we are lobbying to see if it's get onto the VEN list, so that the government can apply some subsidy to it, make it more affordable. But I've been told by a drug rep that it's already on the VEN list, but I have to double check on that.
So a very interesting question here, Doc. Does Jamaica have a tracking system if loved ones wander away?
Yeah, very good question. We have one for children, but we should have one for the elderly population as well.
Indeed.
So something we could bear in mind. But I don't have any tracking system per se. I mean, it's reported on the news and so on, but I can't say we have a tracking system and to see how many persons have wandered away and bring to the public awareness and to increase public alertness to this possibility when they have their loved ones in your home situation to ensure this doesn't happen. Because when it happens, it can have very devastating end result.
Okay, so just one last opportunity for questions. All right, going once, going twice. I'm up. So at this point, Dr. Goldburn, I just want to take the opportunity to say a big thank you for your very detailed, comprehensive presentation. I am leaving this meeting being a lot more aware in terms of the signs, symptoms of this disease, the management and prevention strategies, parent welfare issues, and the whole psychosocial aspect of the management, which sort of stood out for me, the parent welfare and the psychosocial aspect of it. And sure persons on the platform would agree with me that we are much more much more aware than we started out. And I say a big thank you. And also thank you to all those persons who took the time out to be with us this afternoon.
You're most welcome,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Price, and all the best.
And all the best to you too, sir. So we're going to ask our pastor just to say the closing prayer and to say a special prayer of blessing upon you, sir. Pastor?
Thank you, Sean. Dr. Goldburn, thanks again.
You're welcome.
You're making yourself available, sir. Most informative, most helpful. Let's pray. Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity we've had tonight to be sharpened in our awareness in identifying what really is dementia and the insights we've gotten into how we can be of better service, help to those around us who might be affected by this illness. Ask you, Lord, to give us the confidence, give us the assurance that we are enabled, we are equipped by the grace of God to care better for those who we know are affected by So help us not to miss the opportunities to be kind and to be patient and aim all the time to see how we can make a better mark in caring for dementia patients. It sounds like just loving people the way we would want to be loved if we were the ones affected. Give us that kind of sensitivity, we pray. And we thank you for Dr. Goldburn and his willingness to share with us. We ask, oh God, your continued enablement of his service as it glorifies you, as it serves the nation. In part, go with us, we pray, and grant us that we might retain much of what we've learned so that when need comes, we can apply it. Hear our prayer, we ask you. In Jesus' name, amen.